What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel for some more Escape from Tarkov. So it has been a busy couple days for me. I've been checking out all the new stuff that just came out in patch 0.12.4, and it took me a few days to kind of gather my thoughts and opinions, and the developers have been making so many changes to everything that I'm kind of glad that I waited a few days before I got my thoughts down and share them with you here on YouTube. Initially, I was going to make one colossal video, but I think there's just too much information and it'll probably overload, and I want to split this up into multiple videos. So the first video today is obviously going to be talking about the weight, stamina, and endurance and strength. Next video will be the interchange map, all the extractions, some new things, the alarms, all of it, my thoughts and opinions on that, and the new items, body armors, rigs, and stuff like that that have been just added to the game. Just a bit of a disclaimer though, even as I write this script and record this audio, the developers are making active changes to the weight system, stamina, endurance skill, and strength skill point generation systems. They said that they're going to be changing it so you're going to level strength the moment that you start becoming overweight, so around 40 kilograms. But from what I've just tested this afternoon, I was not able to get any evidence that that has been actually put into effect yet. And it's still at 90% your maximum weight capacity. More on that later in this video, but it is subject to change. But it's only going to change to make it easier for you, not more difficult, it seems. So if there's changes that are going to happen, it just makes what I'm saying in this video easier to achieve. All right, with that out of the way, let's begin. When the weight system was first introduced, it was definitely not dialed in. You would basically be overweight from the start of your raid, and after you killed maybe one player, some scavengers, or collected some loot, you'd be massively overweight, unable to regenerate your stamina, forced to crouch or prone every few seconds to simply move towards the exit. Oh, and did I mention you're also hit with a massive amount of unwanted head bob, which is definitely not something you want to force on the community. Understandably, people were pretty vocal and upset about the state that the game was just placed in. Luckily for us, the developers moved on it pretty quick, and within 24 hours, many of the biggest community concerns were heard, suggestions were taken into account, and improvements were made. For example, the overweight debuffs originally worked between 30 and 60 kilograms. Then they immediately changed it to 40 to 70 kilograms, and now we're currently sitting at 45 and 75 kilograms, which I suspect is where it's going to sit because it's actually not that bad. Now you can actually go into a raid, kill a few players, loot their gear, and maneuver out of the map without feeling totally unable to move. Obviously though, this changes depending on what gear you have equipped and what items you've already looted. But for the most part, regular Tarkov play seems to have resumed to speeds we are pretty familiar with, unless you're carrying lots of extremely heavy objects like batteries, motors, gas, tank batteries, that kind of stuff. Also, sprinting was initially changed to where you really couldn't move to the right or the left during a sprint, but that's already been changed back to where it used to be before. Also, the developers have split the stamina bar between arms and legs, and I personally really like the double stamina bar because it solves a few problems the game had with immersion. For example, in the past, if you're running around and seen a player and you were both shooting at each other and you kind of both awkwardly ran out of ammo, you were unable to strike them with a melee weapon if you had no stamina from your leg movement. You would basically awkwardly sit in front of them and wait for your stamina to regenerate just enough to swing once to try to kill them. Now, your melee strikes are actually tied first to your arm stamina and then to your leg stamina bar before it's burned out. And if you're relying on your leg stamina bar, the melee attacks are actually super slow, and it seems like the damage is reduced slightly. That might be a little bit of bro science, but that's what I've seen from killing scavengers. And this is good for a variety of different reasons in PvP. Like maybe you're looking down your sights, you're burning your arm stamina with a heavy gun, but you're still able to run and move into cover if needed if you're taking fire. Or if you're sprinting down an open field, you start getting shot at, your stamina's gone, but you still have your arm stamina, so you can hold breath a little bit, line up some shots at a potential enemy to land more accurate shots than you would have before. Now, on top of your arm stamina bar and your leg stamina bar, you still have your hold breath mechanic, which, like, even if you have near full arm stamina, if you just hold breath for its entire length, then it's still going to give you shaky aim and you have to let your PMC recover. Another important thing that I discovered while making this video is if you burn your stamina bar to like 50% of your arms and 50% of your legs, your character will noticeably be tired, breathing heavily, and making noise. And that must just be because it's taking into account the entirety of your stamina pool, and around 50% is whenever your character starts actually audibly sounding tired, which is something that you should probably consider whenever you're playing around with both your arms and your legs. So now that the weight and stamina bars have changed, that also means that stims are more beneficial than they were before. It also is important to note that the debuffs for these stims have also been reduced, making them more viable. I personally try to keep an endurance stim in my container now and use it when I become overweight or unable to regenerate stamina if my backpack is basically full and I'm close to 75 kilograms. I've also tried the strength stim while being overweight, and although it does help, I don't think it is as helpful as the blue endurance stim. Blue endurance also doesn't seem to have that many negative debuffs or mess with your hydration or energy. So if you can afford to keep one for emergencies, I highly recommend it, especially if you are a PvP oriented player. And if you're really rich, using both strength and endurance stims at the same time is a really quick way to get out of a map if you are completely overloaded with loot. Another consequence to the new weight system is your insurance. I mean, it kind of goes without saying that you're not insuring most of your gear already. You probably should, but I've personally got back most of the gear I lost in PvP fights over the first couple of days of the weight changes. I'm not too sure how that's going to be now, but basically day one, the weight was so rough that people were just taking a few attachments off my guns and leaving the rest of my loot so they can actually leave the raid and make some money. And if you want to be funny, you can intentionally wear the heaviest gear in the game and insure it just to try to increase the probability of people ditching your stuff. I don't know how effective that strategy would be, but it's just an example that insurance is definitely going to be more viable now than it was before. Now, on top of the stamina bar and the weight system, endurance and strength have also been wiped for everybody. And this was to give all players a fair shake to properly test out the new mechanics before people started to benefit from their soft skill generation. So this has some implications as well. It's important to remember that if you have an air filter in your hideout that you're not really using, you really should consider buying an FP100 filter at the beginning of every single play session. This is going to give you a bonus of 40% additional soft skill generation, allowing you to pick up crucial endurance and strength experience where you otherwise wouldn't get it. Now, you might not notice the odd endurance and strength level, but it really adds up over time. Without doing any specific cheesing to my soft skills, I almost had 51 endurance on my main PMC before they wiped the soft skills. And that was just by buying FP100 filters and playing the game often. So you can see how many skills you can generate, and it makes a massive impact on your ability to maneuver quickly throughout the raids. So I highly recommend it. At the beginning of every single raid, you are going to have 129% skill generation. If you have an air filter, you're going to gain an additional 40%. If you get 2 points of the skill that you're working on, it will go back down to 100%. And if you continue collecting skill points, it will just slowly diminish all the way down to 0. And that's why the air filter can help you out, because it can offset some of the diminishing return losses, allowing you to actually generate more skill points than normal players in a regular raid. This is to encourage people to play multiple raids to generate skills and not just sit in one raid hitting their buddies in the kneecaps with a hatchet. So diminishing returns will reduce the efficiency of your skill point generation, and it's something to keep in mind. But for what I'm going to be suggesting, it's not going to play that big of a factor. So let's begin with endurance. It's fairly straightforward. When you run from full sprint, you'll generate some experience. When you walk, you'll still generate experience, but at a slower rate. This skill is also tied directly with distance traveled, but seems like running does provide you with additional skill points. But just keep in mind, regardless of whether or not you're running or walking, you're going to be generating endurance throughout all your movements in Tarkov, but obviously running is more efficient. Without specifically exploiting, that's pretty much all that there is to it. You just repeat your actions, you run often, and you generate lots of points over longer periods of time. If you have 10, 20, 30 endurance, it's going to make a big impact. I also want to mention with the new arm stamina bar, it currently does not provide skill points, but I suspect sometime in the future that it will. Now let's talk about strength. It's a little bit more complex because there's multiple ways that you can generate strength points. Let's start off with the first one, throwing grenades. It doesn't matter what grenades you throw, every single grenade that you throw in the game is going to reward you with roughly 0.2 strength points. It's one of the most efficient ways to level strength, and it's why whenever you jump into a raid, you might hear 3 or 4 grenades pop off at the very beginning. People are just trying to utilize their time efficiently by throwing as many grenades as possible. You also might find that people specifically play labs or reserve to kill the raiders, farm the grenades, and throw them immediately on the spot. If you got millions of rubles to spend, throwing grenades is the most effective way to level up your strength, or at least at the beginning of each raid. The next way to level strength is my personal favorite, which is melee attacks. You will gain roughly 0.1 strength points for every successful melee hit. So a few patches ago, I created a mini game on my stream called Find, Flash, and Bash, and this utilizes both grenade throwing and melee attacks to generate effective skill generation for strength. So I load up with as much Zarya grenades as possible. I use a melee weapon, preferably the crowbar because it has the fastest attack speed, so I'm going to be able to hit the scavs the most. Go into a raid, find a scav, blind the scavenger with flashbangs, and then run into them and try to kill them or hit them as many times as possible in the torso, legs, whatever will allow me to get as many hits as possible on that scav before killing them to maximize my skill generation from the grenade that I throw and the melee swings. Just going after scavengers with your melee weapon, you can kill them, but you will take sufficient damage or possibly will die. So flashbanging them just allows you to get close enough and they're stunned completely, giving you free strength experience. I will also sometimes, whenever I'm completely armored, go after scavengers with my melee weapon and try to use cover to get close enough to attack them, even though they're shooting at me. I'm hoping that they shoot me in one of my arms. I get close enough, hit them in the head. That actually concusses them for a little bit. I move off to the side, hit them again, and kill them. So killing scavengers with melee weapons can be really fun, challenging, but it is rewarding to get strength experience. All right, now let's talk about the last way to generate strength experience, which is walking overweight. So currently, you gain strength when you're at 90% of your total weight capacity. So for new players at the time of this video, you are 75 kilograms at capacity. So 90% of that would be 67.5 kilograms. As I'm saying this, the developers actually just posted a tweet saying they're going to make it easier to gain strength points while walking overweight, somewhere around the medium overweight status. Given the tests I just conducted after they've sent out those tweets, I have been unable to confirm that they've enabled that just yet, and it is still 90% of your total weight capacity. I just want to let you guys know that it is subject to change, but in your favor. It's going to become easier to generate strength while being overweight, not harder. If you want to level up your strength while walking overweight, you should try to be the lowest weight you possibly can while also receiving strength experience. Assuming the game still does 90%, that means it's more effective to actually walk at 67.5 instead of 75. When this changes, find out what the lowest weight you can be and still generate strength points, and remember to walk often when you reach that point in the game, even when playing naturally. The more weight you carry, the slower you will move and the less distance you will travel. Distance traveled is taken into account when you're receiving endurance and strength experience, and the strength that you gain at 90% is the same that you gain at 100%. When I was 75 kilograms, I gained 0.1 strength every 30 seconds. At 67 kilograms, I gained 0.1 strength every 20 seconds. So this adds up and it makes a big difference. Remember though, if you're specifically leveling soft skills, diminishing returns will set in after you gain 2 full points of a skill. You'll still gain the points, but at a reduced rate from 129% down to 100% down to 89%. So that's why I was encouraging you to use your FP100 filter so you can benefit more from your skill generation before real diminishing returns sets in. Is it worth it to go into the raid at the very beginning at 90% of your weight capacity? Probably not. Is it efficient to bring in grenades at the beginning of your raid and throw them? Yes. Is it efficient to find grenades in your raid and immediately throw them? Definitely. Is it efficient to see a scavenger, try to flashbang them or kill them with your melee weapon? Of course. So walking overweight, although in the past has been a fairly efficient way to level up your strength, now with the weight skill difference, it might be really challenging or difficult to rely on it. And like I said before, it sounds like on Twitter that the developers are actually going to make it that you're going to gain strength experience the moment that you start entering the overweight status slowly at a different rate, and then eventually get more points per minute based on how much that you're carrying up until your maximum weight capacity. But like I said before, as I've tested as of March 15th, 2020, that is currently not the case, but will probably be the case, and honestly should be the case moving forward, in my opinion. Out of all the changes, there is one thing that I still really don't like, and that is there will be a point when you're under your maximum weight capacity where as you're walking, you will not regenerate your stamina unless you take a stim or crouch or prone. That type of debuff should only come into play after maximum capacity of your weight. And it's something that I'll definitely be trying to push for with my small bubble of influence on my Twitter account or on whatever podcast that I participate in. I think something like that is so critical and crucial that it should only be applied later and not before max capacity. And I would love to hear what you guys have to say about that in the comment section below. But that about wraps up my summary of what you need to know about the new stamina system, the weight system, endurance, and strength. And I hope you found this video informative and helpful. Tomorrow, I'm talking all about interchange. We're going to take a look at all the new exits, the new key cards, the new looting locations, the new lighting changes, the alarms. All of that's going to be coming very soon. So definitely subscribe here for more Escape from Tarkov videos if you like this, or if you found this helpful, share with some friends, or watch my live streams Monday through Saturday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch. I'll include a link to that in the description box below.